Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today let's compare and taste side by side two of the most iconic Super Tuscan wines, Sassicaia and Ornellaia. It is truly interesting that Tuscany has long and rich history with winemaking. It is home to such famous appellations as Brunello di Montalcino, Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, and Chianti Classico, the latter being one of the oldest denominations in the world. However, coastal area of Maremma and Bolgheri hasn't had significant historical meaning with winemaking, and its fame is relatively recent development, especially if comparing to my previously mentioned winemaking areas. Yet, some of the names nowadays coming from Bolgheri, including these very same Sassicaia and Ornellaia, are way louder, famous, and dictate much higher prices than many other wines from Tuscany. In contrast to my last big gun tasting of Dom Perignon and Cristal, this time I actually managed to source the same vintages, 2020, which was the COVID year. But who wants to remember that, right? 2020 in Bolgheri was relatively warm and sunny, but with cool nights, which should play to our advantage here by preserving the much-needed acidity. Why did I choose these two specific wines? Well, I started with Sassicaia because it is still believed to be one of the most influential wine from Tenuta di San Guido estate, which is credited to create and boost this very hard-to-define category of Super Tuscan wines. While both wines, Sassicaia and Ornellaia, come from Bolgheri area, Sassicaia actually has its own appellation, Bolgheri Sassicaia DOC, which originally was a sub-region in Bolgheri, but in 2013 was established as a separate appellation. This designation states that the wine must be made from a minimum of 80% Cabernet Sauvignon and aged at least 2 years before its release, of which minimum of 18 months must be in oak barrels. Ornellaia is labeled as Bolgheri Superiore DOC and is another wine primarily based on Cabernet Sauvignon, though with a lower percentage, around 50%, with the rest being other Bordeaux grape varieties, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot. Other famous Super Tuscan names such as Tinanello and Solaia are actually produced from grapes harvested in Chianti Classico. Luce from grapes of Montalcino, and Massetto is based on Merlot grape variety and quite frankly is unattainable in both terms of price and availability. But enough talking, let's do some tasting. Just poured myself wines, super excited. With which one I should start? Let's start with both. Okay, as expected, both wines are really deep in color. I mean, those are based on Cabernet Sauvignon, so they are inky. Nothing new here. By smelling it, you know what was unique when I was reading about this specific vintage? Apparently, winemaker made a decision to harvest all the grapes at the same time, including Merlot and Petit Verdot. We usually know that Merlot is one of the first ones to be harvested and Cabernet Sauvignon and Petit Verdot is one of the last ones. So they decided to do it all at the same time. So I think it's quite unique, and I wonder if we could get some herbal elements here. More like herbs, like rosemary or thyme, garrigue. But that could also come from the oak aging, which is definitely not overpowering the fruit here. To anyone who would say that this wine is coming from warm and sunny vintage and who would expect like luscious and jammy type of fruit, it's not here. It is very elegant. The first thing you feel is quite high, mouth-watering acidity, and it just kind of lingers on the palate. And you have these firm, elevated tannins, but fruit, they're not jammy, they're really kind of fresh and crunchy. You feel that they are ripe, and it is truly what they said about the vintage. Probably because of the breezes and the cooling effects of the nights, these wines were able to retain their acidity. It is starting to open up a little bit. I mean, now I feel a bit more that vanilla, that toastiness, that roundiness that sometimes high quality oak can give. Alcohol is a bit warming, but it is not pushing wine out of the balance. However, I think that fruit is a bit shy. I think maybe this wine might benefit. I will correct that, not might, will benefit from some age in the bottle. And I mean, 10 years, probably nothing. It has those firm, those chalky, those sticky type of tannins. It's mouth coating, it's covering all my palate. They're really ripe as well. So let's move to Sassicaia. It is, I mean, you always read that Ornellaia is plusher, rounder, and oftentimes more approachable in its youth than Sassicaia. I haven't tasted this wine yet, but it seemed more open than Ornellaia. It is like these black and red ripe fruit profile, some blueberries, blackberries, black cherries, currant. Beautiful, it's so inviting. And of course you also feel that kind of cedarwood, that toastiness, that sweet toast coming from oak, but it is definitely not overpowering the fruit. It is just giving like an extra layer to the fruit. Let's taste it. Wow. Here as well, the acidity is one of the prominent features, and it is so long. Wow. All you feel is crunchy cherry, crunchy fruit, and the acidity, it is quite high, and it kind of helps to gather the fruit and stick it to your palate, and it still lingers. It's so persistent. Beautiful. Actually, the alcohol for this wine, it just didn't bother me at all. Like when I tasted Ornellaia, I felt a bit warming sensation, but with Sassicaia, it just wasn't there. It wasn't an issue. A slight pine wood as well on the nose. Wow. What a beautiful and long lasting wine. I mean, on the nose, I told it was mostly ripe black and red fruits, but on the palate, it is ultra fresh. I mean, it's like sour cherry explosion on the palate. And the tannin level, again, it is high, it is mouth coating, but they are just so finely grained, tiny, but they're everywhere. And I mean, this wine will age beautifully. That acidity, I keep swallowing my saliva. It is just epic. And another thing, both of those wines, they're huge, they're big wines, but because of that elevated acidity, they seem very light. They seem almost like ballerinas type, you know, dancing elevated above the ground. Really lovely. Hey wine enthusiasts! Today I've got something really exciting for you. Imagine blending your wine passion with smart investing. That's exactly what Venezia offers, a seamless fusion of both. With Venezia, only top-tier wines are sourced directly from renowned wineries by expert sommeliers, becoming more than a collection. They're your investment, safeguarded and authenticated using blockchain technology. How does it work? Venezia transforms your wine into digital asset, ensuring unmatched security, transparency, and real-time tracking of your asset's storage conditions. It's not just about investing. It's about appreciating your wine journey and generating an additional emotional return while you sit back and enjoy a glass of your favorite wine. So if you're keen to make your wine passion fruitful, hop over to venezia.com to turn your love for wine into your next smart investment. If I had to choose which wine to drink right now, I don't know. They're both beautiful and I would drink them both right now. They are essentially opened. I will not be aging them. I think that Sassicaia has finer tannin structure and higher acidity, and that acidity kind of locks a bit it closed on the palate. So you kind of want to put it in the fridge or wine cellar and forget about it for 10, 15, 20 years. But then Ornellaia, it is also very fresh, but the tannin structure is a bit firmer, a bit kind of punchier. So you want to lock that wine in the cellar and forget about it for 10, 15 or 20 years. You kind of want those wines to go through that child, teenager into the grown-up or beauty of the grown-up wine. Yeah, so it is a hard decision. I don't know. Should we wrap it up and add some points? Ornellaia, such a beautiful wine. I mean, and it opened up with time. And it makes sense. Like, these are big wines, these are rich wines, concentrated wines. They need time. And I would give this wine a 94 points. Completely deserved, beautiful wine. Age it. You know me, I rarely say don't drink your wine now. And this is definitely the case. Don't drink your wine now. If you have 2020 Ornellaia, forget about it in your cellars. And then Sassicaia, the same vintage, 2020, again, forget about it in your cellars, but I will give it a bit more points, 96, maybe 97. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful wine. It is just a bit nervy, a bit energetic, but it just plays so beautifully currently on the palate at this very moment. I really liked it. I do have a small celebration today and I am cooking steak and I will be choosing Sassicaia for tonight's steak. And by the way, if you want to learn a bit more about this iconic wine, I also made a video about what's so special about Sassicaia, where I was tasting a completely different vintage, so make sure to check it out next.